And we're live, we're live. Hello, Clinton. How are you? How are you in the time zone?
Yeah, I'm slowly acclimatizing.
we might have to get you to burst into a bit of song. But those who don't know, Clinton is just off an exceptionally long flight from some very exotic locations. So we're going to have to keep the energy really, really high. But I know that's not a problem, Clinton.
No, it isn't.
You know, and I dare say there's probably a few people who've already left for the day ahead of the Easter week, long Easter weekend, and the beautiful sunshine as well. So we're definitely going to have to keep the energy high. So, Clinton, your mission is to activate 1 million voices.
Yep.
Go on, tell me, where has this come from? What's it all about? Tell me more about you.
From the left side of my brain. It started. I mean, I've always had this thing called activate 1 million. Activate voices, or should I say, voice activate, and that happened from in my previous life in education, teaching from nursery to primary school to secondary school to college to university, and then to teachers, and then to lectures, and then to some businesses. And this whole thing of voice activate happened. And as me going through these rooms and then across the planet, I just was like, you know what, we need to have a number. And I remember that good old lovely year 2020. We were all stuck in 2D, like in the Phantom Zone.
Exactly.
Everyone was like this. And I just, I was coaching to everyone around the world. And we did this program called, and we still do it, called 30 Days to Find Your Voice. And I just had this number in my head, 1 million. And I just said, all right, well, let's just go for activating 1 million voices. And so this theme just stayed there. And I said, well, wouldn't it be nice to hit that number? Have that goal. I think I was reading I think it was the Tony Robbins book of saying, having a goal is actually better than just having some small, get by thing. And so I just said, right, let's activate 1 million voices. And I can't publish the number yet, actually, at the moment, because we're in day 80 at the moment. I've actually put myself on a time, 90 days. We're day 80, and we're activating 1 million voices, not just through singing. I mean, we're using singing as the tool, but the singing has so many amazing powers that we can use in our everyday life, from well-being to in the office, having that water cooler conversational experience, to in our home with our children and our family members and our loved ones. And so I've just opened this thing through singing to help people to get to know parts of their voice that they wouldn't have ordinarily known if they didn't, cross my path. That's the nutshell.
But I think that's the thing. Tony Robbins is not wrong. It's like, what's the phrase? If we don't put a goal out there effectively, it's just a dream or something. You've had quite a unique career, as you say, through education and then into, music, and, been alongside some, minor celebrities, shall we say, just little ones. I know Carl is very keen for a little rendition of Tina Turner today. He wants. I think it was Simply the Best that you broke out into song at the personal branding event in November. I think he was after a slightly different one. But anyway. But what is it about our voice, though? I mean, I've heard you talk many times about our voice, and something that's always resonated with me is you say, we practice for hours at school, on that tracing paper, gently mapping out our handwriting for hours and hours and hours, and yet actually we don't practice our voice at all. And I think that that has always stood out for me from the moment you first told me. I mean, yes, that would have meant that I would never have won a school prize, because the only school prize I ever won was the handwriting prize. So, you know, you would have dashed my every last hope I ever had of getting a school prize. But, you know, aside from that, but why is the voice so important?
The voice is so important because from my personal experience, I had a very, very hard time communicating when I was younger. I was a mumbler, stutterer, stammerer. Still am in certain aspects. When I'm, you know, taken out of a zone, we have a tendency to almost like scribble in our vocals. We kind of, you know, the words don't come out right, or you know, the phrasing doesn't come out, and this causes us to send signals to our brains which we interpret as lack of confidence or anxiety, or you know, emotional in emotional output or an input. And I struggled most of my childhood life communicating, and you know, going through different social circles as a young kid was very, very hard. It was only until I got on the stage and started to sing when I realized that these powers of using my voice were multiplied 1,000-fold. And I remember singing in one of my first primary school, I think it's a nativity play or something like that, and just seeing the room change, you know. And this is like overload to a kid that didn't know how to communicate with his voice. So imagine just as a child not being able to communicate, like how are you, and then going to a nativity play and singing, you know, away in the manger, no crib for a bed, and then the whole place goes. And at that point, I was looking, I was like, I have powers. And just basically, in a nutshell, all through my life, I've been trying to just rewire these vocal powers in a way that I can communicate with people, understanding what it is to reside on the time and pitch axis of our voice, and getting people to understand that their voice is just a little bit more, or in most people's cases, a lot more than they actually know about. And using singing as a communication tool, you can get people to step out of their comfort zone and then reapply themselves into their vocal zones where they can actually communicate with people. Just changing their mindset, and changing their mindset changes their state, and then changing their state of mind gives them this access to delivering what they need to deliver. And it's just so beautiful watching people unfold using these skills. Yeah.
And I think, you know, and you use the word there, it's that presence thing. It's that whole piece of how you describe the nativity play, and how just through that stepping in a change of state, you change the whole room.
Yeah.
And the response to you as a result.
For sure.
And I think that's something that, you know, and we were talking just before we started this live about the idea that, you know, lots of people can write a brilliant presentation content-wise, but to actually deliver it is a wholly different kettle of fish, where you're literally drawing the audience in with you.
Yeah.
That's the power of presence. And I think that is something that, you know, is what you're describing, that little magic.
Yeah. Well,
you can't possibly be shy of me, Clayton. You sound like the greatest out there. And I think that's the thing. I think for me, you know, in the essence of collaboration, that presence, that voice is, you know, it's almost the glue, isn't it, to bring people together.
Yeah. I think first of all, people don't feel that they need to practice their presence. First of all,
yeah,
they don't feel that life is a performance. Whether you choose to believe it or not, you have to perform in some way, shape, or form. You have to. A performance is different for a mother when she's speaking to her son or daughter, and and speaking, her tone lowers. Yeah, she becomes lower larynx at times because it's a presence of command. But she doesn't necessarily go to the office meeting and perform. Well, maybe she does, but she may change the gear to from lower larynx to undulating pitch, depending on who she's resonating with. And similarly to me as a male, I might speak to my dad and go, Dad, still to this day, like, Dad, because it's a tonality that I've used and I've grown up with, and it's a place of safety and security, so I can use those tones. But I wouldn't go to John. Maybe I might. I don't know. What I'm saying is that we have access to these frequencies, and if we play around with these in these environments, we can change the atmosphere with it, and that's what a song does. And so what I'm using the song is to illustrate, if we play around with these things on the pitch axis, we get different results. And it's about playing around with these performances. Most people think that they are stuck with one type of performance, one type of tone. Well, this is me, and this is the way I speak, and this is how I will present. And
I'm reading the news.
I'm reading the data, or I'm reading the menu, and I'm gonna. Well, no, life doesn't have to be that way. Some people think that they should just be speaking up and down like this, and they're undulating off their pitch, and they may think that they're stuck in that lane. No, we have a variety, we have a cascade of pitches that we can use that not only make it entertaining, not only does it make it interesting, not only does it make it attractive to the people that we're speaking to, our listeners, but it actually changes the body chemistry of us in our day-to-day lives. And this is what makes life interesting, when we can start to play around with these things. So performance presence is one thing, but the other thing, which is, I would say, the main thing which everything is predicated on, and that is the breath.
Mm-hmm.
And very few people are in tune with their breathing. I think they think it's some sort of thing that experts need to do, but there are different ways to breathe that give us different outcomes in our thinking, in our state of mind, in the amount of oxygen that we feed to our brains, the amount of depth that we give to our lungs, and ultimately can take us from being anxious to being confident. And when we're in tune with those things, these things, although they might look like they're small shifts on using the power of repetition, we can actually change the dynamics of how our day, the course of the events of our day, if we get in tune with these things.
I think that's so true. I'm just going to pop up a couple of comments that popped up in the comments.
Yeah.
Somebody saying here, I still don't like my voice, and I'm surprised when people experience me in a room with such power. And I guess that's presence, no?
Yeah, for sure. I'm surprised when people experience me in a room with such power. Spaces, places, and faces. These things add to your presence. And if you don't know the room, sometimes when people go into a big boomy room and they go to speak, they're shocked because they haven't understood that the space actually gives you presence too. And it could be the difference between you speaking in a big auditorium and a car with padded insulation. And your presence is changing where you go. Everybody knows when they're in the shower. They are so super powerful when they sing their favorite song. I always find that really strange that you can be so super powerful, but so super naked at the same time. The most vulnerable place in the world is the shower. But you feel so invincible when you're using your voice with the ceramic tiles reverberating this power. Now, if we tap into that, can we use that mindset, the shower mindset, in our presence in other spaces and places, and ultimately in the presence of other faces. And so I'm challenging people through singing. How can they get to know their voice? Not only just their voice when they're actually speaking or singing, but their thinking voice, because they run at different speeds, don't they? The speed of thought is different from the speed of sound or reverberation, and then there's also the speed of reflection. So we've got different speeds that we're receiving all at the same time. And this is what causes us to be discombobulated or distorted in our performance and our presence. You know, sometimes when you've said something and it reverberates in a room, a stupid thing sounds even more stupid. When it's reverberating, you're like, oh God, everyone's catching up to my stupidity. It's all of these feelings that we're feeling as we're delivering our sound. And this is all because we don't spend enough time with our sound.
And it's really interesting. Somebody's saying here, sorry, I can't see all the LinkedIn users. I've got several LinkedIn users popping up here, so I only get to see it in the StreamYard thing, I'm afraid. But is it performance or different aspects of you? I think you started to touch on some of that.
Is it performance or the different aspects of you create performances? They do. They create different presentations. Yeah. In the days of old, my gran, bless her, when she was alive, she spoke Patois. Yeah, and Patois has a different it's a Jamaican language, and that was a West Indian language, and that language creates lots of different rhythms, lots of different sounds. And then she would speak to her kids, and she'd be speaking and she'd be in Patois. I can't speak Patois, so I'm not going to do it. Yeah, I can listen to Patois. As half Jamaican, I can listen to it, I can understand it, but I'm not going to do it because I can't speak. But she'd speak Patois, and then the phone would ring, and she'd go, "Hello." Hello, who's speaking? It's a different performance.
Yeah.
The music of Patois is so rhythmical, it's so attractive, it wants you to dance. And then she goes to her English voice and her English and hello. And it's it's very cutting. It's very it's got lots of sibilants. It's got lots of consonants, and they're very symmetrical and equidistant from each other. And then she jump into rhythm again, and then she jump back into. Is it aspects of us? Is it performance? I mean, it's music. It's all music. Yeah. It's definitely all music.
No, for sure. And I guess there's another point in the comments about. My boys tell me I can't project my voice. He's saying they're right, but is it just that they've not done enough singing?
Again, people we are not fully in tune with our body and what it can do. So when we start to understand, for example, the 4 components of making a sound, our actuator, the voice, the air production, how we breathe. How we breathe is how we push out the airflow through our vocal folds. And there's many people I've had on my coaching courses, whether they've been on my choir coach tours or my 30 days to find your voice, and they go, I can't project. And then I go, let's shift some stuff around. And when they shift some stuff around, they go, oh my God, I didn't know I can do that. I didn't know I can do that. It's because you've never known you had access to it. And so they may be right that you may not have the capacity to project right now. But if we shift some stuff, I guarantee you will start to understand that the actuators help the vibrators, the vocal folds change the way they anatomically, the way they push the air, or the way the air is pushed through. And then we have our resonators, which is our mouth acoustics. And those cavities in our body, when they shift and change, they help our articulators, also these reflective surfaces like our teeth and in our mouth, they help also bring this projection through. So we've got 4 components, these 4 components that create sound. And when we change and shift these 4 components, there is a variety of sounds that can make you feel powerful, that can make you feel strong and deep, that can make you feel very sharp and penetrative, that can make you feel loved and welcomed, and that can make you feel really happy and jolly and jovial. And so when we learn to use these things for and with intentionality,
Yeah.
that's when we start to affect or effect. We create effects to affect our environment.
It's just so powerful. I mean, just even listening through, you kind of going through all those different, voices, pending pitch, and how you, kind of portraying it all. It really becomes very clear how you can completely change the room and the response and the presence you have within that room, but also the response that you gather from that room, and how you either can completely bring people along with you,
right,
or you can completely push them away. But obviously, we want to bring lots and lots and lots and lots of people on board for the 8th of May, because obviously I can't give any more, you and I could sit here and talk about this. I find this absolutely fascinating. So you and I could be still sitting here at 8 o'clock tonight, but obviously I know you need a snooze, having had a very long journey back. So, for you, what can everybody expect on the 8th of May from you at the Powerhouse Global Conference?
I'm really looking forward to just dropping some nuggets. I have very little time to give lots of nuggets that are going to change the way you think about your voice. It's what you do with it afterwards. I think it's going to be the most powerful part. I think I do believe that there are some people in the room that once they get hold of this information, it will be like a pebble dropped into the lake. Yeah, the ripple effect is what's going to matter. And I'm just here to drop the pebble. It may be a rock. I don't know.
It's going to be amazing. So for anybody who wants to join us and to hear more from Clinton, just scan the QR code, and it is going to be an amazing event on the 8th of May. And thank you so much for joining us today, Clinton. And now go and have a nice rest. And we will see you next month. Take care.
Take care.